Hi, I'm Aubrie.
Hi, I'm Kathleen.
I'm a former Christian deconstructing and figuring out what works for me.
And I'm a former Mormon turned atheist.
Welcome to the CNA podcast.
Let's dive in.
Hey guys, have you left a review for our podcast yet? Head over to wherever you listen to your podcast and do that right now.
And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Christian and the Atheist.
Check us out on Patreon for ad-free content.
And speaking of ads, if you or your business would like to sponsor the Christian and the Atheist podcast, feel free to contact us to get started.
Coming up on the Christian and the Atheist podcast. So I go to church with atheists.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like, why the aren't you going to church? Like there was a hymn that we were singing and it had Lord in it.
And he's like, burn the shit down.
He saw it, he read it, he shut the book, he put it back in the pew, and he sat his ass down.
God, I love it.
And he's like, nope.
We turn to each other and like, this is our church now. Our church is our family. Our church is creating the environment our kids want and need, and our church is facilitating their hobbies and their passions, and that's what it is.
And you know, I get it. I'm really unlovable. It's fine.
Extremely. Extreme.
I make Jesus cry all the time.
He is just...
Those poor homosexual loving people, they're going to hell.
If your religion says so-and-so is less human, so-and-so is born terrible, so-and-so is a sinner and is going to hell, this is what it
create hate.
This is what it leads to.
Group.
Welcome to the CNA Podcast Morning Show, where we let you know what's going on in our lives right now.
So we are from Owasso, Oklahoma, and you probably heard a lot of Owasso, Oklahoma high schools being in the news. And we came together and decided we did want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So I do want to say a slight trigger warning, but the trigger warning is we're not going to go into details about the situation.
No, we're not. That's not what we're doing.
No. So what we want, you know what our podcast is about. It's like religion and how we're allies and the dangerous theology and stuff like that. So that's how we want to talk about it.
Yeah.
We want to go into detail a little about the situation, just to kind of give people who may not know what's going on a backstory.
Yeah.
While also being sensitive to misinformation.
Which there is a lot of.
And we don't want to be a product of that.
Exactly.
But we'll talk about that shortly. We're going to kind of talk about a few things. I have a question to ask Kathleen, and then like a little bit of updates, whatever. We're just going to shoot the shit.
Yeah, as we always do.
So I went to church yesterday, and I was in a class with some like at a Unitarian Universalist church. There's atheists that go to that church.
Yeah.
Crazy enough.
Yeah.
And it's because they create community. I'm sure we've talked about this before, but it's come up to my brain. Like, what I'm about to ask you has come up before, and I've asked you this before. But I almost feel like I need to ask it again. I don't know why. Okay. Someone needs to hear it, or I need to hear it again.
Cool.
I like to repeat myself. So, there is an atheist aspect, and we talked about being a humanist and all that, and it was cool because whenever you and I first started the podcast, you kind of called yourself a humanist, and I feel like humanists are almost religious, but not in a church, like not in a God sense, but in their humanism.
Yeah.
And the more we've hung out, you've gone from, okay, I'm straight for sure atheist, with a humanist mindset.
Yes.
And I think that I had these connotations about you when we first started doing this, started being friends, and wanted to break that. And I think I have them still, but in a different way. Okay. And so I'm asking this in a different mindset. Okay. And I think others may have this. So I go to church with atheists. Yeah. And I'm over here like, why the aren't you going to church? Like, I know that we've talked about this, and you, like, to me, like, the atheists that go are like, this is for community. We're not, there's a humanist hour. They don't do worship at all. It's not that. And I'm like, I already know the answer, but I also don't at the same time. Yeah. You know, I know I could answer it for you, I feel like. But like,
you probably know the answer correctly, but yeah.
I don't know if this is the old Christian in me that's like, you need to be in this situation with me. It's freaking great. Like, I want you to bask in the fun. But I'm also like, I can't be that way to myself. I think that's where the heart is
yeah.
people like me who Enneagram 7 gets joy out of stupid shit. And it literally like sticks with me forever.
Yeah.
Like, I'd ride on the high of like, I just had a baller time at church yesterday. Everybody should go.
Yeah.
Why aren't you going to church with me?
I'll tell you. So there's multiple reasons. The main one at this point in my life, because for example, Brandon and I, when we first left Mormonism, we did visit several other churches. I've talked about this on the show. One of the churches we went to, it was during, we didn't actually visit, but we watched sermons online, was your church that you go to now. Yeah. We watched them and we were like, oh, this is great. And I think we watched the Humanist Hour and we were like, high five everybody. This looks great. My problem is I don't care enough to be there. I don't feel like I need more community in my life. I have tons. I have family and friends who love me. I have a great support system of my neighbors and my friends around me. I go to my kids' activities at school and volleyball and, you know, basically my life is jam-packed with community already. And so I don't feel like I need it. And in my experience, I think there is a little bit of not really triggering. I had so much just bullshit thrown at me with Mormonism that the idea of going to a church and sitting down for a sermon, even if it's a humanist or non-religious, just sounds awful.
Yeah.
I don't feel like, I mean, I know the community there is going to be genuine because the people there are great. Yeah. I know many people who go to church with you. There's people there who not even like met through you.
Yeah.
Since you started going, there's been multiple people who are like, oh my gosh, I know her.
Yes.
Because, you know, ex-Mormons.
So funny.
Ex-Mormons just sort of congregate and know each other, and that's how it goes. And so I'm sure if I went, I would find a pocket of people who I loved. But I also have, there is a little bit of my own almost prejudice, I think, against church, that community at church is never real because it never has been for me in the past. And I know that that's incorrect thinking, that me going to a different location, a different church, a different ideology would likely change that experience, but I also don't care enough to feel like I need to. If I'm being totally honest.
It's valid.
Yeah.
It really is. And for me, it's like, okay, I can respect that so much. Yeah. And then when I ask questions, something I've learned in therapy is why am I making judgments? What's going on in me, within me, that's causing me to be like, why aren't you going?
Yeah.
Why am I? And so I think, one, it's the old Christian in me. And two, I'm like, why do I feel like I need to go? I like to kind of play these games. Like, I don't know. Why are we going? The ones that are going, why are we going?
Yeah.
And then whatnot. So I'm just trying to get this verbally out. So for me, like, there's been recently times where we're sitting there and I'm like, this is so boring.
That's my thing, you know.
It can be boring even if it's
no matter what.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be a church. If you're going to the damn PTA meeting.
Oh, right.
Guess what? I also don't go to those.
Same. I stopped going. I went to one and was like, this is not for me.
I feel like I just don't need extra than what I already have.
Yeah.
And who has time?
We went to this one recently and it was like very music oriented. And I had the best time. I was like, that was a really good Sunday service. Yeah. And they combined both the Humanist Hour and the traditional.
Yeah.
And Frank was like, I didn't enjoy a single bit of that.
Oh, no. You're like, what? It was my favorite. Dang it.
So what I'm loving about this new, like, journey that we're on it's both Frank and I are going through
Yeah.
it, and you guys got to hear my part of it, which is fun. Whatever.
Roller coaster ride.
I wish Frank was up for sharing, but also it's whatever. It's his deconstruction and mine are so different, and I think he's been on the journey way longer than me for sure. And he is 100% more humanist than I. I mean, he is triggered by Christianity in a sense of, like, I have to remind him it's not all, you know, this one Bible verse or these handful of Bible verses.
Right.
And that it did serve us at one point and no longer does
right.
fully. And so, anyway, so, yeah, if anything, it was like there was a hymn that we were singing and it had Lord in it.
And he's like, burn the shit down.
He saw it. He read it. He shut the book. He put it back in the pew and he sat his ass down.
God, I love
and
it.
He's like, nope. And you know, nobody's going to get mad. No one's going to come up to or talk behind us being like, did you just see what Frank did?
Yeah.
Poor Aubrie.
Everyone's like, cool.
He doesn't love the Lord.
He must.
Their marriage is in trouble.
Their children are on the gutters tomorrow. Oh my God.
Actually, as they walk out the door.
Like, they all have polio as we speak.
We'll pray for them.
Yes.
And that's so nice because he could do that. And I was like, could you be any more, like, visually annoyed? And I'm not mad at that.
He probably could. He could have thrown the hymn book. He could have stomped out.
He could have been like, what are we doing?
He could have thrown the hymn book across the room, stomped out, got to the back and been like, this is stupid. And
poor guy.
Run. Like,
and he's stuck with me as his wife who's like, let's do this traditional service. He's like, I want to do the humanist hour. And I'm like, oh, if you want to stay 2 services, let's do that. I like the traditional. And well, another is the traditional was out earlier.
Yeah.
Whatever. But anyways, it's been an interesting journey in the church, and like kind of we skipped a Sunday. Last Sunday we didn't go. I was like, I don't want to go.
Congrats. You're allowed to do that.
And it was fine, and
yeah.
we didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
Frank had spent the day somewhere else and on Saturday, and I was like, let's hang out Sunday together because we don't have to go all the way to Tulsa.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
well, that's it. That is one of the other things I was going to say. One of the reasons why I don't go to a church is because I have no time on the week. I go to these volleyball tournaments are every
season,
they are every weekend, and I'm not joking when I say we spent 16 hours at the gym.
Yeah.
And then got up the next day and did it again. It is like, when would I go to a church?
Right.
Even if I wanted to, I could not have time if I tried.
And
so even if I wanted to.
I remember going to church and hearing the pastor talk about prioritizing church and being like, you shouldn't be going to a place that keeps you from your church on Sundays.
Yes.
Like, this is like prioritizing God.
My viewpoint at this point, Brandon and I make this joke all the time, is that when we're all together as a family at some volleyball tournament, watching our kids play and having a great time, it's stressful, it's loud, it's expensive, it's crazy, but we're having a good time doing it. We turn to each other and like, this is our church now. Our church is our family. Our church is creating the environment our kids want and need, and our church is facilitating their hobbies and their passions, and that's what it is. And so I feel like I am prioritizing my church over everything else. My church is watching these little outside hitters work their little butts off.
And you're investing in your kids. They're going to remember this, and it's going to be, you're going to remember this. Yeah. You aren't going to think, oh, well, here I am sitting thinking about Sundays that we spent at Life Church and thinking, I really hope, because Ashton's making comments about when I go to heaven. I'm like, what's heaven? He's like, I don't know.
He's like, great question. People been saying it. I don't know.
So he heard that. So it's like he doesn't say anything about hell.
Good.
But to be honest, they don't really say much about hell at Life Church. They really don't, and that's nice. Yeah. I don't have to worry about that. Thank you.
Good job, guys.
I appreciate that, really. I'm glad that I worry about with my oldest, like, and my oldest and my middle daughter, were baptized in Christianity at the church. It was cute, special, but I also look at that and think, did I do something wrong?
I don't think you did something wrong. I think your priorities have changed, and like you were saying, that doesn't serve you anymore. But I don't think it was bad.
Right. But like, okay, maybe not, but I don't want my kids to be the kids that go to a school and bully somebody, which I know they're not going to bully somebody, and then a situation happened at this school.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. I'll bring that into the conversation towards the end.
Well, I was just going to say one more thing. I feel like in the future, when my kids are grown and I'm a grandma or whatever, which sounds exciting, I don't think I'm going to look back at my life and be like, boy, I wish we went to church more.
No, yeah.
I think I'm going to, basically what I'm saying is I think I'm going to look back at all these weekends that we spent as a family doing kid stuff and be like, I'm glad we did that instead of something else. Yeah. That mindset of don't prioritize anything over church.
Yeah.
I feel like at the end of your life, you look back and you say, I wish I spent more time with my kids. More time with my family.
Not sitting in a...
I wish I spent more time at church. What? Nobody says that. Nobody is on their deathbed being like, boy, I wish I sang a few more hymns. No. They all say, I wish I had more time with my kids.
I think it's people... Yeah, I agree. And I think people, those small amount of numbers that may think that way are because they're told that they should have done something. And it's like a mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm watching This Is Us on Netflix. They dropped it on Netflix. And I've been watching that, and you get to see like the different generations of like, so did you ever watch it? It's so good.
I know. People have said it a million. I know when it was first airing and everybody was like, this is so great. But I never watched it. It's so
special. But I didn't watch the last season. It was just a weird time and stuff. But I'm at the last season. But it's been fun to watch it and be like, okay, these were good parents and they still f***ed up.
Yeah.
And it's given me a little bit of grace to my parents. I feel like I've lifted a little bit of this animosity that I had towards both my mom and my dad but I also am like, you could have done, this is so obvious, like where you could have not been this way. But I do think that they did try, and there was some good times. So we're in February, the end of February, and I'm like inwardly, chaotically panicking about, like, I was good until yesterday.
About moving? About life?
So, like, moving's been something to think about. It's been scary. It's been, like, but it's so far off, right?
Yeah. Feels like it.
It was feeling that way. And then towards yesterday, I was talking to somebody, and all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, my God. And then your mother-in-law, my friend Sherry, came over and sat down, and we were chatting, and I'm like, this is going to be less and less. Like, the amount of time she's come to my house and just randomly knocked on the door. I'm like, come on in, let's sit down and let's have a hangout. Like, it's been sweet.
You're not going to be able to do it. But she's
not going to be knocking at my door.
No.
And coming in. Like, I'm over here like, that's a huge loss. That'll be sad.
But do you know what, though? Is chances are, because you now have this relationship with just a random neighbor.
Yeah.
Chances are wherever you move, your personality is such that you're going to create these relationships with your random neighbors there.
For sure, but like...
It's
so sad to leave Sherry.
It is still a loss. It is still like
that's family.
Yeah, it is.
She really is.
It is definitely sad to be like, oh my gosh.
I was having a conversation with my friend Michelle, and she was like, dude, I don't know how I feel about this. And I'm like, oh, I'm ready to get the out of here. Because the amount of times I go somewhere and I see somebody from church that was not my, that's Live Church. Yeah. I hate saying Live Church because I'm like, whatever, but I am
awkward conversations everywhere.
They're everywhere. They're like fleas.
Yeah.
But there's some that I do like, whatever. Of course. It's fine.
Of course.
And sometimes it's awkward, sometimes it's not. But it's also just like, I'm sick of this. I am so sick of this. I'm like, who am I going to walk and see?
Yeah. It is very refreshing to get somewhere where there is nobody that knows you.
Yeah.
And you can just be who you are and who you want to be. And you're not worried about the lady behind you at Walmart maybe used to teach your kid's Sunday school class and is going to go back and tell everybody all about it.
Yeah. Oh, funny update. So remember we did the tea party? We had a really big tea party.
Yes,
and then
I do.
I had a funny thing happen on my Instagram. Instagram suggested a person to me, and I was like, are we not already friends?
Uh-huh. That happens every once in a while.
And I was like, you know what? I think I figured this out. It's when we're unfriended and they see that your numbers are connected, whatever, and they're like suggesting it.
Yeah.
So I went on Facebook to see if we were friends. I am fully blocked. And I was like, that's hilarious.
So whoever that episode was about listened and paid attention and said...
They knew what they did. They know what they did.
They knew what they did. And they said, there's a guilty conscience that said, block.
Yeah. And I don't... Maybe they listened. Maybe she was like, unfriended me a long time ago.
Maybe.
And that's so possible, but I was fully blocked.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I don't feel like a person would have unfriended me before that episode came out.
I mean, you never know. Maybe she's just been hating you for a while.
And I get it. I'm really unlovable. It's fine.
Extremely.
I make Jesus cry all the time.
He is just...
Those poor homosexual loving people. They're going to hell. Burning forever. Even though that's not how fire works.
No, it's not.
I will burn out.
Listen, if we want to talk about the logistics of Christianity, we are in for a long ride.
Yes.
Because none of it makes sense.
All right. Let's get to the more serious topic.
Let's talk about it.
We kind of connected and we're like, should we talk about this? Should we not? So there has been a tragic death in Owasso, Oklahoma high schools.
Yes.
Nex Benedict has tragically died.
It's a high school student.
Here.
They were a non-binary high school student at the high school where our kids, part of the school district, our kids aren't in high school, but it's where it's
a small enough community that it's affecting, and it's in national news.
There has been reports of bullying for this child for years.
Yes,
there was an incident at the school, and there's so much details that we do not know. There's an active police investigation. There is a lot happening behind the scenes that is getting blown up by like crazy, and so we're not going to go into any details because we don't know any.
And
all we know
we just
is
don't want to be a product of the misinformation. Yes. We also want to be sensitive to a lot of what's going on, and
all we know is that a young person who was part of the queer community unfortunately passed away, and that because of the stress and bullying and targeted situations that they felt. We want to touch on that, obviously on this show, we've talked about it a million times, how religion, Christianity, any religion that preaches any sort of hatred is bad. If your religion says so-and-so is less human, so-and-so is born terrible, so-and-so is a sinner and is going to hell, this is what
create hate.
This is what it leads to.
Group. So remember how we were just talking about how I worry about what my kids have been learning, and so my thoughts go straight to the bullying situation. There was a bullying situation that was against Nex, and there was some students that were a part of that bullying, clearly. So I'm just trying to be sensitive in how I say this. Yeah. My fear is that I think about my kids and what I have taught them and what they've learned from their faith and or whatever my faith was. And I think that we've done a good enough job taking them to Pride festivals, being very openly allies, not just quiet about it, but being like, we don't hate people because of their sexuality or gender identification, all the rainbow stuff. And we're very loud about it. And I think those who identify as Christians and they're like me, who very much love everybody, still need to have these conversations with their kids. Absolutely. And I think this is where I have to be careful with how I say this, because I do not think it's okay to think that being gay is a sin. And I think that it's problematic and it causes bullying situations to happen. My kids have been bullied because we're allies.
Yeah.
From neighborhood kids that are Christian, and they're like, and they're just spouting information they've been given from adults, and it hurts my feelings because I'm like, they're children, they shouldn't even have to be worrying about this shouldn't be conversations they're having. Anyways, I think even if you think it's a sin to be gay, you still need to be talking to your kids about how you don't create hate because of that thought.
Because what ends up happening is these kids are fed this information that, you know, the student next to you who has a rainbow t-shirt on is less than. And that gives in that youthful brain, that becomes something that
is prejudice that they're creating.
Exactly. And that leads to, you know, we've said it before, that type of ideology is dangerous. We don't mean it's dangerous because somebody's going to get their feelings hurt. That does happen. But we mean it's dangerous as in people die. The leading cause of death in like Utah, just to bring, you know, the religion that I'm most familiar into this. Sorry, Mormons. The leading cause of death amongst teenagers in Utah is suicide.
Really?
Yes.
It's getting up there everywhere.
And it's a lot of it is LGBTQ kids who are absolutely not supported and cannot continue living because of it.
And
it is
so unfortunate.
It's a tragedy, and it's something that has to be addressed. It's, you know, if you are seeing something like this go on, talk to your kids. Even if you're not, talk to your kids, talk to each other.
Like my plea to the Christian believers is, you get to believe how you get to believe, and I'm not going to tell you that, like, I disagree. I can't tell you how to believe. This is your faith walk. Please stop causing, or start thinking about what the ramifications are of the type of conversations you're having. If you see a queer person on TV, are you going, ew, that's disgusting? Or, oh, no, that's not really a, like, whatever gender, they're this gender, or they look like this gender. Stop doing that. You don't have to you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to say anything. Keep it to yourself. Please, like, your faith says to first love
thy neighbor.
Just love in general is such a main topic in the Bible. Start living that out. Maybe even in the parts that you don't want to. You don't have to accept, but you don't have to hate. But I think my biggest plea is, be careful with how you're talking. What hate you're not realizing. Like, think, is this causing hate or prejudice? You know, like,
because if it is, it could lead to someone's stuff.
Literally. And literally, we're not being dramatic. And my heart goes out to you that are struggling with how to believe and how to grapple with this, because you do think children are precious no matter what. Let's stop talking about LGBTQ plus in a negative light and just there's a lot in the Bible that we don't that don't get brought up because it's so controversial. Let's make this be one of them that you just, the Bible says what it says. You get to believe it or don't believe it and leave it at that. Let's not make it a big thing.
And of course, you know, as part of this community, we really feel for the family. We really feel for the fellow students who knew Nex, who the people who loved them dearly, and it's extremely tragic and heartbreaking that this even happened.
So we're definitely thinking of the kids that have been negatively affected, the parents. This is a big deal. And this is what we wanted to bring up. And if you or someone you know is having a hard time, we will post some numbers and links that you can click on to find help. Reach out to us. Let us know how you're doing. We're thinking about you guys. Part of the LGBTQ community. You guys are important to us. We see you. We have your back. And we love you. And every one of these people in our lives, I don't care if you're straight, gay, whatever. Y'all are precious and loved and treasured. Let's start talking about it like that. I don't care what you are.
Let's start not being dicks to each other.
In Jesus' name I pray. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.